The House will be in order. A call of the House is ordered to ascertain the presence of a quorum. Members will record their presence by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Speaker of the House John Boehner getting right down to business in the beginning of the 102nd session of the 112th Congress and ordering a call of the House, a quorum call, looking to establish that quorum, which is 218 members, and begin the business of the U.S. House. And earlier today, we got a peek ahead about what's ahead in the House. We spoke to a Capitol Hill reporter. Brian Beutler is senior congressional reporter for Talking Points Memo. As the House returns to start the second session of the 112th Congress, what's on tap for this week?
Not a whole lot. They're ramping things up this session pretty slowly. So they returned today for a series of votes, and they actually managed one vote to, they're going to establish a quorum to kick off the second session of Congress, and they're going to confirm the new House Sergeant-at-Arms. Tomorrow is sort of a slightly busier day. They have a single vote on a resolution of disapproval that dates back to the debt ceiling fight, and they will vote most likely to disapprove of President Obama's request to raise the debt ceiling by another $900 billion. That resolution would have to pass in the Senate and be signed by the President to actually stop the debt ceiling from being automatically raised. So that's sort of a symbolic measure that they're going to be acting on, and that rounds out the whole week. Then they're off to Baltimore for a retreat where House Republicans are going to sort of discuss strategy for the upcoming year, air out grievances about how 2011 went down and came to an end, and then really things will ramp up next week after Tuesday's State of the Union address.
Any hints on what's on the Republicans' priority list for the second session?
I think the key priority for them right now is trying to reach détente within the party on how to approach the coming payroll tax fight. They didn't really have a sort of unified understanding of where they wanted to go or where they thought they could go at the end of the year, and it ended sort of with them getting bloodied up a little bit by Democrats because they basically forced Republicans to do things that Republicans said that they wouldn't do, and cost Republicans, at least politically, on the notion that they are the party that's always for tax cuts, because when they fought the president on this, they lost some of that credibility even with some of their own voters. So figuring out how to work with or combat Democrats on renewing the payroll tax cut and unemployment benefits and Medicare physician reimbursements for the rest of the year, I think will be a really big part of the focus of that retreat.
Well, let's look at the Democratic side for a second. Sure. You attended a briefing today by Steny Hoyer, the minority whip. Where do his priorities lie?
Democrats, I think, they learned a big lesson from the debt limit fight. I think they got their nose bloodied in that one quite a bit, and they are now that it's election year, I think they are both, well, for two things. One, to message on the notion that they are more interested in economic growth than Republicans are, and in job creation than Republicans are, but more broadly to heighten the contrast between the parties however they can. On the House side, it's a little bit more complicated since they lack the power that Senate Democrats have with the majority. But there are still things that they can do, messaging votes that they can force, etc. So what Whip Hoyer was suggesting was that Democrats would continue to pressure Republicans to move on portions of President Obama's jobs bill, other the House leadership, Hoyer in particular, is the sort of guiding force behind what he calls the Make It in America agenda, and it's sort of a series of policies that would ramp up manufacturing in the United States, and so I think that's going to be their focus, is mainly trying to hold the majority's feet to the fire and make it uncomfortable for them to push the Republican agenda forward.
Brian Beutler is a senior congressional reporter for Talking Points Memo. You can read his reporting at talkingpointsmemo.com. Thank you for the update.
Thank you so much.
A quorum call that Brian Beutler was mentioning, establishing a quorum in the U.S. House as they begin the second session of the 112th Congress. We also expect them to elect Paul Irving as the 36th Sergeant of Arms of the U.S. House, but that ought to do it for work this evening. Then they're back tomorrow for the resolution of disapproval on the request by the President to raise the debt ceiling. And, of course, we'll have that live for you tomorrow. Some news from the House today. Todd Platts, the Republican congressman from Pennsylvania, announcing today that he won't run for re-election in 2012. Meanwhile, the Associated Press says another Republican has joined the race for the Massachusetts congressional seat being vacated by Barney Frank. Sean Belat, who lost to Mr. Frank in 2010, made the announcement official today in Massachusetts. And one more note from the House side. House Republican campaign chairman Pete Sessions of Texas is the fourth House member who has been notified he received a discounted loan from the former Countrywide Financial Corporation. The Associated Press writes that his spokeswoman, Tori Miller, confirmed the notification today. The mortgage records of the four lawmakers have been sent to the House Ethics Committee by a separate investigative panel. Well, this is a 15-minute quorum call. We're going to take you over to the White House next. From earlier today, the President today met with his Council on Jobs and Competitiveness this morning. He said his team's been working hard to implement their recommendations to create more American jobs, and that progress is being made. The President's remarks run about 10 minutes, and we'll show you as much as we can as this quorum call continues.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Mr. President, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Good to see you. I'm Mr. President. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Mr. President, good to see you. President, Happy New Year. Good to see you. How you doing? Good to see you, Mr. President. Good to see you again. Good to see you. Happy New Year. How you doing? Good. Please, have a seat, everybody. For those of you who I have not seen since before the break, Happy New Year. I am extraordinarily grateful for all the work that you have done. I want to start off by thanking Jeff for his continued outstanding leadership of this Jobs Council. I think the plan is for me to maybe just open up with a few remarks, and then we've got a whole bunch of presentations, so I don't want to take too much time. Is that all right with you, Mr. Chairman? That's great. One of the things that's been striking about this Jobs Council is how focused and how hard-working everybody has been around this table. This has not been a show council. This has been a work council. And because of the extraordinary commitments that each and every one of you have made, we have generated, I think, as good a set of proposals as we have seen coming out of the private sector to help to guide and steer our economic agenda and our approach to jobs and growth over the next couple of years. In each of the earlier meetings, we discussed the key role that we all play in accelerating growth and improving America's competitiveness, and that the economic recovery has to be driven by the private sector. we have moved aggressively to implement your recommendations. As I think you've heard, of your 35 executive action recommendations, we've taken action on 33 of them. We've completed the implementation of 16 of them. And I'll highlight a couple of examples. Building on some of the Job Council's National Investment Initiative recommendations, last week the Vice President and I hosted a forum on the increasing trend of insourcing, companies choosing to invest in the United States. And Intel and DuPont participated, along with several dozen other companies. We discussed tangible ways that we can encourage domestic investment, and I announced a number of new initiatives and new tax proposals to provide further incentives for companies to increase investment in the United States, including expanding on Select USA, one of the recommendations in your last report. And we actually had a company there that had benefited from the services of Select USA, and it confirmed the power and capacity of one-stop shops and a coordinated approach from the federal government for somebody who's interested in investment here in the United States. I've personally emphasized to the White House team and to the Cabinet the importance of aggressively implementing the recommendations of this Job Council. I've been tracking implementation of your recommendations, and we've seen substantial progress across the board. Let me highlight a couple other areas where your ideas and focus have had significant impact. First, on permitting. This is something that I know that Matt and others really emphasized. As we all agreed we needed to make a big investment in this country in infrastructure to assure our competitiveness, we also agreed that we can't be bogged down by red tape and bureaucracy if we're actually going to get every bang for the buck. Building on administration efforts to streamline permitting, I issued an executive order to expedite review of job-creating infrastructure projects and to track their progress on a new public dashboard. All 14 projects are on track. Most importantly, we're using these projects to learn lessons that we can scale across a whole range of projects throughout the federal government moving forward. And I want you to know that as a result of your input, we're going to establish a permitting project manager effort overseen by OMB to establish performance metrics, track progress against goals, and adapt best practices across agencies. So, see, Mark can cross this off, check this off his list. I know he was coming here. He was going to make sure that happened. It's happening. A second example. On regulatory review, and we're going to have an opportunity for Jeff and Cass to expand on what we've been doing in this area. But I tasked federal agencies to cut inefficient or excessively burdensome regulations and issued an executive order to independent agencies to look back at their regulations for inefficiencies and excessive burdens. Currently, we're estimating savings of $10 billion over 10 years by implementing just a fraction of the reforms that have already been proposed and identified. Cass is going to provide you with a fuller update in a moment, but the preliminary results are exciting, and this includes, by the way, the independent agencies. So, for example, the FCC, prompted by our request, but also due to some excellent work by Julius Genachowski, they've already eliminated 190 rules. 190. And that gives you some sense of the scale of the work that can be done as a consequence of some of your recommendations. I announced last Friday that I'm going to ask Congress to give me authority to reorganize the government to make it work better for the American people while eliminating duplication and waste and inefficiencies. Much of this was embodied in some of the recommendations that you had in particular areas. My legislative proposal would create a consolidation authority that would for the first time require that any reorganization proposal reduce the size of government and cut costs. So this is not just a matter of moving boxes around. The question is, can you actually achieve better integration, better streamlining, better efficiency, and ultimately better consumer service and better payoff for taxpayers. The first proposal we identified was to consolidate the 6 agencies focusing primarily on business and trade into a new department with a single mission, to spur job creation and expand the U.S. economy. And this new department would consolidate the core business and trade functions of 6 agencies. It would be focused solely on helping entrepreneurs and businesses of all size to grow and to compete and to hire, while also cutting costs and provide better customer service. So I make these points just to say that not only have you guys exceeded all expectations in providing specific, thoughtful recommendations, hopefully we've at least met your expectations in follow-through and implementation. What we haven't seen is a bunch of white papers sitting on a shelf somewhere collecting dust. We have tried to take very seriously everything that you proposed and to try to integrate it into not only legislative proposals but also the executive proposals out there. So I read your first-year report. I was pleased to see that there's consistency and shared urgency about America playing to win. Education, innovation, streamlining regulations, energy, manufacturing, all these are critical issues, and they're all interwoven, and they impact each other. I recognize a lot of these issues are difficult. They've proven challenging for decades. The good news is on each of these fronts, we've made progress this year. I feel confident in being able to say that every one of the agencies in this government has been focused on how do they improve, get smarter, get better, get faster, become more focused on delivering good value to the end user. I believe that we've made genuine progress on all these fronts. We would not have made this progress without this Jobs Council. And I think it will pay off in terms of solidifying this recovery and allowing us to move forward in a way where it actually translates into jobs, which has obviously been our principal and primary focus, making sure that we're creating a fair shot for every American who wants to work hard and get out there and succeed in this economy. So with that, Jeff, I just want to say thank you for being able to provide such outstanding leadership for this effort. And with that, I'm looking forward to hearing all the good work that's already been done.
Thanks, Mr. President. You know, I think what we said first.
President Obama from earlier today, the House back in, starting the second session of the 112th Congress, establishing a quorum for that. And this is 15 minutes, still a number of members set to register their presence on the floor. Tomorrow the House is back. They will debate and vote on a resolution of disapproval of the President's increase in the request of the increase in the debt ceiling. David Hawkins of Congressional Quarterly writing a symbolic rejection of the latest increase in the national debt ceiling, knowing full well the measure will be rejected outright as soon as the Democratic Senate takes it up. Several hundred protesters on Capitol Hill today with the Occupy Wall Street movement. The Associated Press writes that organizers had touted the rally, known as Occupy Congress, as the largest gathering of Occupy protesters to date, and secured a permit that would have allowed up to 10,000 people to participate. By mid-afternoon, the AP writes, the protests appeared to have fallen short of those goals. Well, next up, part of Newt Gingrich's town hall today in West Columbia, South Carolina, one of his 7 appearances today. We're going to show you as much of this as we can as the House continues with this quorum call.
I was just asking the sheriff to teach us the secret of how he gets reelected. That's a pretty long, remarkable career that he has. Callista and I are delighted to be here. We apologize for running a little bit late, but we're thrilled to be here and have a chance to talk with you. And I really appreciate my good friend, Congressman Trent Franks, who's just been a tremendous leader, particularly in the pro-life movement, who has been here helping us and carrying the message across the state. So thank you again, Trenton. Rich, I want to thank Rich for having helped us. There you are. Thank you very much for your support and your friendship. It really means a lot. I do want to start, by the way, the White House, the press secretary today, said that my comments last night about President Obama being the best food stamp president in American history, he seemed to disagree with. Now, I know the White House is a little bit isolated from reality, but I want to make a point about this. First of all, as a matter of just statistical facts, President Obama is the most effective person at putting people in food stamps in American history. Now, that's just a fact. Second, what seemed to really rattle the White House is that I suggested that the President's policies might have something to do with this. It wasn't just random bad luck. And he said, well, you know, we inherited the worst economy since the Great Depression. I think that's fair. Now, Ronald Reagan inherited a terrible economy and began turning it around within about 3 hours. And Ronald Reagan understood that the trick was not to spend your whole first term blaming the past, but to create the future. Reagan ran for re-election with a slogan entitled "Leadership that is Working." I think as of the present moment, it's going to be relatively hard for President Obama to suggest this is working. I was told by
Their
somebody...
presence, a quorum is present. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings of January 13th, 2012, and announces to the House his approval thereof, and pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas rise?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 1, Rule 1, I demand a vote on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal.
The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The journal stands approved.
I object to the vote on the grounds that a quorum is not present and make the point of order that a quorum is not present.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question are postponed. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Florida, Mr. West.
The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The House will be in order. Members will please take their seat. The House will be in order. The Chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives. Sir, I hereby offer my resignation as Sergeant-at-Arms of the House of Representatives, effective January 17, 2012. It has been a privilege and honor to serve this institution as Sergeant-at-Arms since the 104th Congress. If I can ever be of service to the House of Representatives in the future, please do not hesitate to call upon me. Signed sincerely, Wilson Livingood, Sergeant-at-Arms.
Without objection, the resignation is accepted. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I offer a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 511, resolved that Paul D. Irving of the state of Florida be and is hereby chosen Sergeant-at-Arms of the House of Representatives.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The House will be in order. Will the Sergeant-at-Arms designate please take the well? Swear in the Sergeant-at-Arms of the House. You'll raise your right hand. Members, please rise. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and witness to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which you are about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 512, resolved that a committee of 2 members be appointed by the Speaker on the part of the House of Representatives to join with the committee on the part of the Senate to notify the President of the United States that a quorum of each House is assembled and Congress is ready to receive any communication that he may be pleased to make.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to House Resolution 512, the Chair appoints the following members to the committee on the part of the House to join a committee on the part of the Senate to notify the President of the United States that a quorum of each House has assembled and that Congress is ready to receive any communication that he may be pleased to make.
The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Cantor, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Pelosi.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal, which the Chair shall put de novo. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The journal stands approved. Virginia. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 513, resolved that the Clerk of the House inform the Senate that a quorum of the House is present and that the House is ready to proceed with business.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The gentlelady is correct. The House is not in order. The gentleman from Virginia can proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 514, resolved that unless otherwise ordered, the hour of daily meeting of the House shall be 2 p.m. on Mondays, noon on Tuesdays, or 2 p.m. if no legislative business was conducted on the preceding Monday, noon on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and 9 a.m. on all other days of the week.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the order of the House of January 5, 2011, providing for morning hour debate, be extended for the remainder of the 112th Congress, except that House Resolution 514 shall supplant House Resolution 10.
Without objection, so ordered. Purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a privileged report from the Committee on Rules for filing under the rule.
The clerk will report the resolution.
Report to accompany House Resolution 515, resolution addressing a motion to proceed under Section 3101A of Title 31, United States Code.
Referred to the House calendar and ordered printed. What purpose does the gentleman from Oregon rise?
Mr. Speaker, ask unanimous consent to withdraw my name as co-sponsor for H.R. 1161.
Without objection, so ordered. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to remove my name as a co-sponsor of H.R. 3261.
Without objection, so ordered. The House will be in order. Please take your conversations off the House floor. The Chair lays before the House the following personal requests.
Leaves of absence requested for Congressman Farr of California for today, January 17th, and Wednesday, January 18th. Mrs. Napolitano of California for today, and Mr. Reyes of Texas for today.
Objection. The request is granted.
The House will be in order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The Chair is prepared to entertain 1-minute requests. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise? Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, the little tyrant from the desert in Iran is saber-rattling and rattling the nerves of many Americans. Ahmadinejad is threatening to block oil from going through the Strait of Hormuz. This would raise the price of gasoline in America. Meanwhile, 3 years have gone by and the administration continues to delay a decision on the Keystone XL pipeline project. Approval of this pipeline would immediately create 20,000 jobs in America and bring in 700,000 barrels of oil a day. At first, the administration decided not to decide until 2013. However, new law requires the administration to make a decision by February 21st. But there are grumblings the administration may find a way to ignore this provision of the law. Americans are in need of a stable source of energy and they are thirsty for jobs. This country needs energy from a reliable and stable country like Canada. We should make Middle Eastern oil and its politics of turmoil irrelevant. The administration needs to pick a horse and ride it. Build the Keystone XL pipeline from Canada to Port Arthur, Texas. And that's just the way it is.
The House will be in order. Will be in order. Please take your conversations off the floor. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi rise?
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, today I'm proud to recognize an educational keystone in Mississippi's 4th Congressional District. Jones County Junior College, celebrating 100 years of educational leadership and excellence since 1911. Located in Ellisville, Jones is the largest single-campus two-year college in our state, and it's among the top-ranking community and junior colleges in the nation for enrollment. JCJC boasts diverse and competitive programs, including 9 academic divisions, 4 career and technical divisions, and award-winning athletic teams. How does Jones County live up to its motto of inspiring greatness? During the past 100 years, Jones's outstanding faculty and 5 presidents, including current President Dr. Jesse Smith, have brought commitment and consistency to this campus. It is not unusual to see Dr. Smith visiting casually with students around campus, leading by example and investing in student success. I salute Dr. Smith, the staff, faculty, alumni, and students of Jones County Junior College on more than 100 years of excellence. Congratulations on a job well done, and go Bobcats. I yield back.
What purpose does the gentleman from North Dakota rise? Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, today I want to congratulate the North Dakota State Bison on an incredible football season that led to winning the 2011 FCS Fan Championship. More than 10,000 fans cheered on the Bison in Frisco, Texas, where the Bison defeated Sam Houston by a score of 17-6. The Bison, Coach Craig Ball, worked hard this season, and their determination resulted in NDSU's 9th national championship and the first championship in Division I. These student athletes represent NDSU's commitment to both academic and athletic excellence. Their character and perseverance truly exemplifies the North Dakota spirit, and they have made our state proud. Congratulations to Coach Bowl, the Bison players, and NDSU fans everywhere on an excellent season. Thank you, and go Bison. I yield the remainder of my time.
What purpose does the gentleman from Minnesota rise?
Address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the courage of two young Minnesotans whose lives have been drastically changed recently while playing a sport that they truly love. A December 30th high school hockey game began brightly for 16-year-old high school hockey player sophomore Jack Jablonski, who scored the opening goal of the game. But a shocking check from behind during the second period unfortunately left Jack paralyzed. And sadly, 1 week later, another young hockey player, 18-year-old Jenna Privet from St. Croix Lutheran High School, was hospitalized after also being injured during a game. Mr. Speaker, despite this, these two young athletes have not lost their love of the game and have shown incredible courage in the face of facing such terrible accidents. I'm pleased that this weekend the Minnesota High School League took swift action announcing new rules that aim to make the game safer. I urge all of us to keep Jack and Jenna and their families in our thoughts and prayers, and I yield back.
What purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, H. Canyon Chemical Separations Facility at the Savannah River site near Aiken, South Carolina, which is valued at nearly $1 billion, is the only shielded nuclear chemical separations plant still in operation in the United States. During its operating life, H. Canyon facility routinely recovered uranium-235 and neptunium-237 spent fuel and has aided America in honoring its international agreement by returning these fuels for the purposes of nuclear non-proliferation and safeguarding. Today, H. Canyon and the HB line operations are supporting the DOE highly enriched uranium blend-down program and plutonium disposition program. By blending down highly enriched uranium and isolating plutonium from surrounding corrosive elements, H. Canyon ensures our country's national security while simultaneously providing fuel which is currently being purchased by the Tennessee Valley Authority to power commercial nuclear reactors. As difficult funding decisions are made in this Congress, I urge my colleagues to support the mission of H. Canyon. It is a vital national asset that has served our country since victory in the Cold War and will continue to protect and serve Americans both home and abroad for decades. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we will never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism.
Are there further requests for 1-minute speeches? 1-minute requests. What purpose does the gentlelady from Texas rise? Without objection.
Speaker, you would wonder
how do you claim victory out of a season that, if you are a professional football player, does not end in the Super Bowl? I rise today to congratulate and thank my hometown team of the Houston Texans, a very young franchise that came together and showed their mighty might and kept on plugging until they got into the playoffs and even to the point of meeting the Baltimore Ravens last Sunday. There are many good things to say about this team. In the backdrop of the holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King, it is also a tribute to them that these young men worked together and showed themselves as brothers, coming from so many diverse backgrounds from around the nation. Their owner, Bob McNair, their coach, Coach Kubiak, their defense coach, Wade Phillips, their general manager, Smith, and some of their stars like number 80 and Arian Foster, and their young quarterback and many others, showed themselves to have good character and good examples for our community. And yes, let me thank them for the service they've given to the young kids in Houston, Texas. From the foundation of number 80 and the many individual acts of kindness, we appreciate the Houston Texans. So tonight, you may not be in the Super Bowl, but you are our winner. We thank you for being the kind of young men that are modeling yourselves to be the kind of leaders that middle school boys and girls and others can have as a shining example. Go Texans. Maybe not this year, but I know you're on your way. But most of all, you have served yourself well in the area and the arena of professional sports. We can truly be proud of you. Congratulations, young men. Do well in the off-season, and we're ready for you to come back. Houston loves you. I yield back.
Gentleladies, time has expired. Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. Are there any further requests for one-minute speeches? Any further requests for one-minute speeches? Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Latta, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is a very important hour tonight because we're talking about the security of this country, and we're talking about having a secure source of oil and energy into the future. And as Americans around the country know, it hasn't been too long. They just go out and look at what the gas pump says. And I know when I left Bowling Green, my hometown in Ohio this morning, gas was $3.49 a gallon. And you know, we only have to go back to January of '09 when President Obama took office, and gasoline was $1.78. So we've seen a dramatic increase in the price of gasoline. But what we need to do is we need to talk about not only about the security, but where we're going to be getting our oil from, because oil runs our manufacturing, and it's very, very important. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee. And earlier this year, in manufacturing jobs in this country, on just our committee alone on Energy and Commerce, we had 1,729,250 manufacturing jobs on our committee alone, according to the national manufacturers. Today, that number has dropped to 1,526,941, or a loss of 202,309 jobs in manufacturing. And when I'm out talking to my folks in the manufacturing, small and large, one of the things that really hits them is what the cost of energy is and where it's going to be coming from. And when we've got the problems over in the Middle East and with Iran, and there's a question as to if we're going to have a secure source in that region of the world, it pushes up the price of energy, and it affects the jobs in this country. But we have a really unique opportunity in this country, and the President does. And what the President can do is to get this, the Keystone XL pipeline going. And we've urged him in committee, and we're urging him in Congress to make that decision and get this going. Let me just go through a few facts, if I may. You know, first of all, a lot of people might not realize this, but the Canadians are our largest folks up there to the north that provide energy to us in the form of oil. We get 13% of our current U.S. energy or oil needs comes from Canada, or 23% of all U.S. petroleum imports come from Canada. A lot of people might think they come from over in the Middle East. They don't. They come from our friends up north, our good neighbors up north. Another statistic I think is really important to point out is that when we send $1 to Canada for Canadian products, we're getting 90% back from the Canadians on purchases that they make of U.S. goods and services. So it's a very, very great relationship that we have with the Canadians, because it's a great relationship, our largest partner to the north, and when it comes to trading. But Canada is only second to Saudi Arabia for proven recoverable oil reserves, with more than 170 billion barrels in the form of the oil sands. 170 billion barrels. And again, as the largest supplier of oil to the U.S., Canada provides consistency and stability with nearly 2 million barrels per day, which is currently more than, again, of the 20% of U.S. imports. And approximately 56% of all Canadian exports of oil to the U.S. flow into the northern Midwest region. That's Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. 94% of all those imports into the region come from Canada. 76% of this oil is from the oil sands. So 40% of all the oil refined in this region also comes from that area of the oil sands. And a report that was issued by the Canadian Energy Research Institute, the CERI, states that U.S. jobs supported by Canadian oil sands development could grow from 21,000 jobs today to 465,000 jobs by 2035. But I think it's also important to note that, we're looking at about 20,000 jobs right now, and another 100,000 jobs on ancillary if this pipeline gets approved and gets moving. So it's incumbent that the President takes action, that we can get these jobs in the United States, but also, more importantly, along with those jobs, is to make sure that we have a secure source of oil in this country. 2,400 American companies in 49 states are involved in development of Canadian oil sands. That's important, because it's just not the Canadians up there that are doing this. It's American companies, American jobs, making sure that we have that stable source. So when it comes right down to it, we need to have the President act immediately and favorably on this to get America moving on jobs, but also at the same time to make sure that we have a stable and secure source of energy in this country. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield back the balance of my time to my friend Mr. Terry from Nebraska.
Thank you.
I'm yielding back to the Speaker.
Thank you. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011, the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Terry, is recognized for the remainder of the hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why are many of us on the House floor tonight, after regular business, talking about the Keystone Pipeline? It's because it's a win-win. 20,000 immediate contracting support jobs for the construction of a 1,700-mile pipeline from Alberta, Canada, down to our refineries in South Texas, and then over to Louisiana. Beginning when this pipeline is finished, it'll bring about 700,000 barrels of oil to the United States from our good friend Canada. Now, just to put that amount in perspective, 700,000, they expect that by the time it's fully operational, it'll be 1 million. To put it in context, today we are importing 900 million barrels from Venezuela. 900,000. We import 1.2 million from Saudi Arabia. So take it which way you want, but our friends from Canada, Alberta, just a few hundred miles north of our border, will be enough oil to almost completely offset the heavy crude from Venezuela or Saudi Arabian oil. The reality, my friends, is that we have enough energy resources in the United States and Canada to be free of OPEC oil. Now, we talk about 20,000 direct jobs from a $7 billion project that is sitting waiting to go. They have their project labor agreement sitting. There's union folk ready to go to work. All it has to do is be approved, the permit for this, approved by the President. Once he says yes, 20,000 people go to work. And we put ourselves on a path to greater energy security. That's one of the reasons why I fought so hard to get onto the Energy and Commerce Committee, is to set us on a path to energy security where we don't have to send our money, U.S. consumers' dollars, to buy our energy necessary to propel our economy. But a funny thing happened on the road to energy security. The environmentalists said that this is heavy crude and it is going to expel, in the process, too much CO2. They want to stop fossil fuels. So instead of using the most energy-efficient refineries in the world that would have the least emissions of CO2, I guess the environmental community would rather it go to China, where they have few pollution and carbon controls on their refineries. And by the way, China just bought half of the oil sands just a week ago. They'd be glad to buy the other half if we don't. So it's going to be refined. The President has until February 21st to say yes or no to this. That was by act of Congress, setting that deadline, because the original application was filed September of 2008. 3 years and 4 months ago. The average is 18 months for a transcontinental pipeline. This administration has been dragging its feet because they don't want to irritate the environmental community, which has been heightened now since we're into an election year. I wish we could have done this before we got into 2012, where it could be based on the merits and not the politics. But politics is what we're dealing with right now. The President said several times in the last few weeks that, geez, because the Congress has forced my hand on making a decision before February 21st, that's not enough time, so I may just have to deny it. Well, that's complete bull. Here's a document. I apologize to the gallery and maybe our C-SPAN viewers because the print is rather small. But this is an administration document from their agency dated July 25th. Executive Office of the President, July 25th. Let me read the important sentence here, the significant sentence in their document. The bill that we had then on July 25th, they say, is unnecessary because the Department of State, who makes the recommendation to the President, has been working diligently to complete the permit decision process for the Keystone XL pipeline and has publicly committed to reaching a decision before December 31st, 2011. Two other documents from the State Department have said that they have all the information they need, they're working diligently, and they will have the recommendation to the President on by December 31st, 2011, which, of course, they have not made. And the President says, geez, Congress, no reason for you to get involved because we're working diligently and we have all the information we need and we will make a decision. Then, just prior to December 31st, they're starting to say, we want more information, or you're putting us in a box where we're going to have to say no. Bull. This is all politics. Stop playing politics, Mr. President, and put us on a road that we can be energy independent, and at a time of high unemployment where these tradespeople are standing around waiting for work, put them back to work now, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to yield back my time to the chair.
The chair will remind the members to address their remarks to the chair.
I'll take that down.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Shimkus, is recognized for the remainder of the hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is important that as soon as we get back here today, it was our first day back, that we get back on the focus of creating jobs in this country. And not jobs that government says we can create, but sustainable jobs that are created by the private sector. Private capital assuming risk, hoping for a return to get economic growth. There's no better opportunity to do that with the Keystone XL pipeline. This is what we're talking about. Here's the oil up here in Edmonton. There's already a pipeline that goes down into my district, actually, Patoka, a refinery in Wood River, and a new refinery also in the central eastern part of the state of Illinois. The Keystone XL will be this blue line, which will bring more crude. Why do we need another pipeline, a bigger pipeline? Because there's so much crude oil up there in Canada, and they really don't have the ability to refine it. They really don't have the ability to market it. Let's get this crude to U.S. refineries so that we can then access it to our markets. The great thing of the folks from the Midwest, as you had Mr. Terry, you had Mr. Latta, we already understand the benefits of the Keystone XL pipe or the Keystone pipeline because we're already receiving the product to our refineries. This is the oil sand. It's just oil that coats sand. And they boil it off, they recover the froth, they turn it into a liquid product called bitumen, and then it eventually gets turned into synthetic crude, and that's what we're talking about. The third largest oil reserves in the world are right here. How do you get it? A lot of times you do it through surface mining. Here's an example. Now this the trucks are actually a little bit bigger in the mining operation. They're about 7 stories tall. The tires are at least 1 story tall. Built by a U.S. company called Caterpillar, located in Illinois, and that's where 50% of all these heavy dump trucks go to mining operations around the world. One of their biggest markets right now is right in Canada. Robinson Oil Refinery is the other refinery in Illinois. It's receiving the oil sands product, moving it into a product to meet to the market. So these are real jobs at a real time that will create real jobs. 20,000 immediately, and as my colleagues have said, ancillary jobs. You have pumping stations. You need to build the pumps. You got to have the electricians that operate it. So this is something private capital, return on investment, energy security. The President says he believes in the free flow of oil when he's trying to address Ahmadinejad in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. There's no better free flow of oil than permitting the Keystone XL pipeline. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back my time.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise, is recognized for the remainder of the hour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, you're going to be hearing a lot, Mr. Chairman. We're all going to be talking a lot about the Keystone Pipeline. And the reason that we're talking a lot about it is because between now and February 21st, President Obama has a decision to make. President Obama has been tasked by this Congress to make a decision by February 21st on whether or not to approve the Keystone Pipeline. Now, the President, frankly, should have approved this project months ago, when back in August, the State Department, who was tasked by the President to make a recommendation, was getting ready to actually make a recommendation to move forward on the Keystone Pipeline. And, of course, what we're talking about is creating jobs in America. 20,000 American jobs will be created if the President moves forward with the Keystone Pipeline. But also American energy security is at stake here. And so the President has continued to punt this issue. In fact, just a few months ago, the President tried to push this issue off until after the election. Because just right after the State Department was getting ready to say, let's go forward with the Keystone Pipeline, all of a sudden some of the radical environmental groups came forward. And these radical environmental groups, who are against any form of American-created energy that doesn't involve wind and solar power, whether it's oil, gas, nuclear, they're against all American energy. And so these radical environmental groups went and had a protest over at the White House. And they intimidated this president enough to where President Obama said, okay, he's going to push it off until after the election, thinking that he could just hide behind radical environmentalists and say, oh, well, we've got to look at the environmental issues. Well, this has nothing to do with whether or not it's good for the environment, because, frankly, the State Department looked at the environmental issues already. President Obama knows that. The State Department looked at those environmental concerns and said they're not there. In fact, if the President approved Keystone tomorrow and said yes to those American jobs, the Canadian government and the company that would be building the pipeline would still have to comply with the environmental laws of every single state that that pipeline would go through. So it's not a question of whether or not Keystone would comply with the environmental laws. They have to comply with all the environmental laws. But what is at stake is whether or not we're going to take these 20,000 jobs in America or whether those jobs are going to be shipped to China. Because China's already said they want the Keystone oil. They want the oil that would be created by these oil sands in Canada. And so the question is, are we going to have that oil from Canada sent into America, or is that oil going to go to China? And of course, what that really means is, are we going to take the 20,000 jobs in America, or is President Obama going to send those 20,000 jobs to China? What does President Obama have against the creation of 20,000 American jobs? You know, and the President loves to give all these speeches talking about the middle class. And, Mr. Chairman, you know, when the President talks about the middle class, he can't say he supports the middle class if he rejects the Keystone Pipeline, because he'll be turning down 20,000 American jobs that will be coming down with over $7 billion of private investment that's coming from one of our best partners in the world, Canada. Canada's a great trading partner with America. If the Keystone Pipeline is built in America, and we start partnering with and taking about 700,000 barrels a day of oil from Canada, that's oil we don't have to get from Middle Eastern countries who don't like us. So look at the policy. First of all, they have to comply. If they do this, they have to comply with the environmental laws, not only of the United States, but every state that it goes through. So the environmental issues don't exist that the President raises. But what is at stake is whether or not we're going to get 20,000 American jobs, and whether or not we're going to get oil from a friend in Canada, or we're going to get oil from Middle Eastern countries who don't like us. And so that's what this debate is about. Between now and February 21st, the President's got to decide whether or not he's going to say yes to American jobs, or is he going to side with his radical environmentalist friends who went over to the White House and threatened him and all of this kind of foolishness and said that they want to send that oil to China. Well, the good news is that the President doesn't really have to decide whether or not that's going to happen, because he can just go look at what his own State Department said. The State Department said they think those jobs should stay in America, but the President has got to decide whether he's going to side with the radical environmentalists or whether he's going to side with American families and workers who just want jobs and want American energy security. And frankly, if we've got a choice, because our demand for oil hasn't gone down, it's a question of whether or not we want oil from Canada, who's a friend, or from Middle Eastern countries who are not, and if we want to create 20,000 American jobs. So that's what's at stake between now and February 21st. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I urge, first of all, the President to side with America in those creation of 20,000 jobs, but to approve the Keystone Pipeline.